Hey squad, it's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thanks for joining us. Today we really wanted to talk about this whole leopard tank situation. So the latest coming out of Europe and the Ukraine-Russia war, which we like to call a pretty big deal, is the Ukrainians are looking for heavy armaments. They're looking for big tanks. And in this world, it's only a couple countries you can go to get some big tanks. You have China out there with their Type 59s. You have America with their Abrams tanks. Russia, of course, is a big player with their T series. And you also have Germany. Germany have their Leopard tanks. And Israel have a couple of tanks, but they're mostly modified on the American and Russian series. So what's very unique about these German tanks is one, they're a little bit faster. So the M1 or the Abrams tanks are American and they're top notch. Everybody says this. They did a lot of great work when dealing with the wars in Iraq. So the Abrams are well tested in the Middle East primarily within a relatively modern time frame. But these Leopard tanks, they're European made and they're European facilitated. So basically, these tanks were meant to fight Russia. Germany is a NATO ally, and these tanks were built for the purpose of fighting warfare in Europe. They're faster, meant to go across plains. They're faster than the Abrams series. They're well armored and they're itching and ready to go. So Germany has these tanks already, and some of their allies, I think as many as 10 countries, already have these tanks around Europe. One of them being Poland, which is very important because Poland are big hawks, as we always talk about when it comes to Russia. But the Ukrainians are looking to get these tanks, but not only are they going to try to get them from Germany, but they're trying to get them from the Allies as well. And Germany does have licensing agreements on these tanks. So the big push has been Germany give us free reign to bring these Leopard tanks in, but we can utilize them in our defense against Russia. And there's been two responses to this. One is America, why don't you get those Abrams over there? You don't necessarily need our Leopard tanks. And the second part is Germany believing that this is going to lead to an escalation. And both of those have somewhat valid merits. But the key thing here to understand is Ukraine are pushing forward, and Ukraine is trying to step up their acts of aggression because you can't, when you do bring these tanks in, yes, they do have a defensive capacity, but that also arms Ukraine with ability for counteroffensive. And I think that's what Germany is talking about when they talk about an escalation. These tanks can be used in defense, but they can also be used in offense. So it's interesting how this war is already escalating. At first, it was just incursions, then skirmishes. We're going all the way back to 2014, and then you got the introduction of drones, and now you get into the gritty, hard-nosed, get tanks on tanks. So we haven't seen really massive tank battles in some decades, just because of the wars that have been fought. But when you get the tanks out, that's definitely let you know this is power versus power. These are big major players that are going to put heavy industry and their economy behind their war efforts. And I think this points to another thing. Warren Buffett, the great investor, he always say, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. And I think the lesson you can take away from this, which is a great lesson indeed, is you have to temper yourself and prepare yourself for times of opportunity that will eventually present themselves. Why do I say this? You go back to the end of World War II, America stepped in and what was needed by the Western nations of Britain and France and other European countries, scared of Russian or Soviet aggression at the time. And America went in and they made an order with the Europeans. And this order was kind of American centric at the end of things, but it was okay because America had inserted themselves in the war, but was least harmed by the war. So they didn't have to worry about damaged infrastructure in the United States during World War II. They didn't have to rebuild their country. In fact, they were kind of collecting favors as well as territories and debts during World War II because America was so prominent in supplying the war effort to countries that were really in it. France, the Lend-Lease with the Soviet Union, etc. So what America did is put themselves in a very advantageous position. So when the war ended and these countries were down on their luck, they invested Marshall Plan, NATO, etc. Whole Bretton Woods edifice that was built out. Now, since Europe has rebuilt itself and become stronger, America's still there. And you can see these big European players, or I like to call them the continental players, France, Germany, not so hawkish against Russia. They're really trying to work this out in a smoother way. The countries of Eastern Europe, or that align Russia, or that were part of the former Soviet bloc, they are not that way inclined at all. So you see this more conservative France and Germany trying to slow the brakes down on escalation, but countries like Poland ready to put their foot on the pedal to make this escalate this even farther. And because America is leaning that way, like the coup de grace, like let's just put this Russian beast down. Because of that and its alignment, it's kind of taking the foreign policy away from France and Germany. Because America was there for them at their lowest point, now America is controlling them at their highest point. Now that they're strong enough to better economies and they're able to carry out their own foreign policy, but America's already in bed with them. And it's kind of interesting to see how they're trying to maneuver, but especially if Ukraine is successful, because you're going to have Poland and Ukraine. And I had a video about this. Like, these guys are going to be geared to the teeth. I think these guys are going to be the new Prussia. Who knows what's going to go on as this war continues? But you have a bunch of tough countries, very anti-Russian, that can be facilitated or supplemented by NATO, especially Poland. And we see Turkey playing both sides here. But I don't think Turkey's going to be silent in this as well. So we're going to continue to watch how things develop and unfold. It's going to be interesting how this Leopard tank situation or Leopard 2 tank situation plays out. But we think it's definitely going to be pivotal if Ukraine can get their hands on these European modern warfare battle tanks to take on Russia. So let us know your thoughts, how you see things, how it's playing out. Do you think we missed the mark, or you're right on line with us on the role that these Leopard tanks can play in finally turning this war over and putting Ukraine on the offensive? So thanks for joining. Take care, and until next time, Bantu up.